Hello, Mahalo Gacino here. Welcome. We're in the Flourish garden, and today I wanted to talk about sages, salvias. I have a number of different salvias, a lot of native varieties that I've put into the garden and around the space. They work really great for these conditions we have here in the foothills with really hot, dry summers, poor soils, and a lot of deer browse. So they've done great in some locations, and others have had different challenges. So we'll just walk through the garden, take a tour through the garden, look at the different sages, and talk about how to keep them looking lovely. Thanks, and I'll join you in the garden. This is Miko. He loves it when we come out in the garden, so he may join us for the tour as well. This is a native salvia variety that I put in a couple of years ago. I believe it's a Salvia brandegii, Brandegii sage. But to be honest, I lost the tag, so all I know is this guy does so great. Actually, I planted 5 really tight in a cluster. I really wanted this to fill in quickly and nicely, but this gets blasted summer sun. I did, line the bed with rock, so it's really happy out here. It even snowed pretty late this past winter, and while the plant fell over just a little bit, it did great. It handled it perfectly. And in the summer, this is covered in these beautiful blue flowers that attract hummingbirds and butterflies and bees. And so just recently I came in and really hacked it back. I took off, I'd say 90% of the flowering stalks, old flowering, the seed heads. I wanted to keep a little bit of that look. I think it's pretty attractive, but the plant itself just looks so much better. These woody sages do great with a fall time trim back. They appreciate that very much. This is a white sage that I put into a planter, and it was out at the garden entry really being blasted by the sun, and as you can see, this plant was not as happy. And I recently moved it here into the garden, the Salvia apiana, the white sage, and it's immediately responding to having some morning sun, but definitely not getting blasted by the afternoon sun, and it's really coming back. So these can be nice in containers. They don't need a ton of water. This is a white sage that I have in the ground in the back corner of the garden, surrounded by some rock mulch, and it seems to be doing really well, thriving with very little water and attention, and goes nicely with this native volunteer, this little Lotus persiana. These are a line of Texas sage, Salvia grigii, and I find these to do really, really well in our weather. They have a beautiful magenta colored flower, and they might need a little more maintenance. I tend to prune these twice a year, once in the spring, and then I just gave all of these a haircut. I don't know if you can tell. You can kind of see the difference here where we have this nice green foliage coming up through the center and sort of more yellow colored foliage on the outside, which are the older growth. And so I just went through and chopped back a lot of that older growth and reshaped them, and they'll respond really well and stay nice and full. This is a sweet black sage. I love this sage. It's not maybe as showy as some of the others, but this one's Salvia mellifera, and so these flowers are really readily accessible for the bees as well. So they're a great plant around for pollinators, and very, very hardy, a nice shimmering green foliage. And this this plant in front of you is planted in our garden and in the Flourish garden proper, and really has taken a long time to get going. And in a second I'll show you one that I planted on a slope that immediately just took off. So this would be a great plant on a dry, hot slope. This is one of my white sages that I thought would thrive in this location. I expected it to just go gangbusters and fill in this large center of a garden bed. But this guy, two and a half years later, is literally like a foot tall and really gangly. And I suspect, you know, there's the sage I just showed you is literally 15 feet away, but it may have to do with the mulch. I'm gonna experiment this fall and create a little area and add some gravel and pull back the mulch, and we'll see how she responds. Here's the black sage, the Salvia mellifera, on the slope. This is shaded in the morning but gets blasted in the afternoon sun, and a little challenging to keep things well watered on this slope. So this black sage has done fabulously, and like I said, this is right outside of my kitchen window, and all spring and summer long I was able to watch all the beautiful bee visitors on this plant. And this is the last white sage I'll show you, but you can see this is fairly shaded area. It gets some intense sun for a few hours a day, but I wasn't sure these guys would like it. You know, again, mostly thriving in sunny conditions. So this guy's doing great, but then there's one in the background there that's also really happy, mixed in with some ground covers. But then this guy really just not doing much. I think this is really the most shaded spot, and perhaps all this beautiful yarrow is keeping it just a little more moist and fertile than this plant would prefer. Here's a close-up of the autumn sage blooms. They're really very attractive. The sun's kind of catching it in a weird way, but yeah, they're a solid magenta, and you can almost catch right here how the bees must be seeing this plant with all those neat iridescent colors, leading the path into the nectar. But these plants will get covered in these blooms all summer long, really long blooming. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some valuable information. Those are just a few of the sages that I wanted to share with you, but they make a great plant for hard to garden situations. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, happy tending.